May 31st, 1889. Pre-dawn darkness cloaks the mountains above Johnstown, Pennsylvania. In these early hours, an immense reservoir perched 14 miles upstream begins to tremble. Hundreds of millions of gallons of water, once held back by the aging South Fork Dam, are about to surge down the narrow gorge of the Little Conomoff River. What follows is one of the most devastating engineering failures in American history. The Great Flood of 1889, also known to locals simply as the Johnstown Flood. In less than an hour, a wall of water more than 40 feet high will sweep through the town, reducing homes to splinters, uprooting entire families, and leaving more than 2,200 people dead or missing. Today we'll explore not only what happened in those terrible moments, but how a community's ambition, neglect, and misfortune combined into calamity. Hello, and welcome to Deadliest Disasters. Johnstown in the late 19th century was a booming industrial town nestled in a steep valley along the Conomoff River. Founded in 1800, it had grown into a center for iron and steel production. Smokestacks lining the skyline, factories humming day and night. Railroads had replaced canals, and the Pennsylvania Railroad ran through the town, making it a hub for coal, steel, and iron shipments bound for Pittsburgh and beyond. By 1889, Johnstown counted more than 30,000 residents, families, laborers, business owners, all living in wooden frame houses perched on terraces carved into the riverbanks. Life here was hard but prosperous. The Allegheny Mountains might seem remote, but they sheltered a community utterly connected to America's industrial heartbeat. Above Johnstown, on the South Fork of the Little Conomoff River, stood an artificial lake created decades earlier. In the 1830s and 40s, the Pennsylvania Main Line Canal Company needed a reservoir to feed canals that linked Philadelphia to Pittsburgh. Engineers built the South Fork Dam around the year 1839. It was an earthen embankment rising roughly 72 feet high, stretching almost 1,000 feet across the valley. Behind it, Lake Conomoff swelled to nearly 7 miles long and half a mile wide. For years, it functioned without incident, supplying canal boats with water. But when railroads made canal boats obsolete, the dam fell into disuse and disrepair. By the 1870s, the abandoned reservoir attracted the wealthy members of Pittsburgh's elite. They formed the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club, purchasing the dam and lake as a private retreat. Weekend parties, fishing trips, and exclusive gatherings ensued. However, in converting the dam spillway for their own leisure needs, club members lowered its height, plugged drainage pipes, and installed fish screens that blocked debris but clogged during heavy rains. They failed to maintain the dam's earthen walls or the auxiliary spillways. Local engineers warned of danger, but the club dismissed it. In effect, the dam, already weakened by years of neglect, was a giant, ticking time bomb. Throughout late May of 1889, relentless storms poured over the Alleghenies. Between May 28th and May 30th, more than 6 inches of rain fell, saturating the ground, swelling creeks, and raising water levels in Lake Conomoff to unprecedented heights. By the evening of May 30th, the South Fork Dam was under immense pressure. Club caretakers noticed seepage and small slides along the dam's crest. They attempted to raise the dam by hauling heavy materials, stones, and brush to patch leaks. But by the morning of May 31st, water had eroded critical sections of the embankment. Just after 10 a.m. on Friday, May 31st, 1889, at roughly 1,400 feet above sea level, the dam collapsed. The northern end of the embankment gave way in a colossal breach nearly 300 feet wide. In an instant, approximately 20 million tons of water gushed down the narrow gorge. Imagine a monstrous wave, 40 to 70 feet high at its crest, roaring through the canyon at speeds estimated at 30 to 40 miles per hour. Trees, railroad ties, carriages, livestock, household items, and even people were caught in the maelstrom as the fast-moving water, hurling debris like missiles, flowed at an unstoppable rate. Downstream, the Little Conomoff riverbed could not contain the deluge. The flood wave struck the small village of Mineral Point. Minutes later, it obliterated the South Fork Bridge, hurling tens of railroad cars and a handcar locked with passengers into the torrent. Witnesses later described scenes of unimaginable terror, men, women, and children clinging to fence posts, screaming as they were dragged under. Entire families drowned in their homes, walls collapsed like paper, tossing occupants into swirling currents. Furniture, livestock, even entire barns became battering rams. The roar of the water was deafening. Reports say the thunderous noise could be heard miles away, like the bombardment of a battlefield. By the time the wave reached Johnstown, only 20 minutes after the dam's collapse, hundreds of homes had already vanished. The river had swollen to 4 times its normal width. Streams became canals of churning brown water filled with splintered beams and drifting corpses. It's estimated that the crest of the flood in Johnstown reached 40 feet high, so powerful that it tore the Conemaugh Viaduct, an enormous stone structure, away from its piers. The twisted iron and shattered stone formed a deadly barrier at the town's south end. Debris piled up 20 feet deep and a quarter-mile wide. Flames ignited as gas lines ruptured. A firestorm erupted amid the wreckage, sealing the fate of dozens more who survived the water but were trapped behind walls of debris. By nightfall, Johnstown lay in ruins. More than 2,200 people, men, women, and children, were dead or missing. Bodies crowded the riverbanks and floated downstream as far as Pittsburgh. Entire neighborhoods had vanished. Churches, schools, and factories were gone. Over 1,600 buildings were destroyed. The devastation was total. The cost of damage has been estimated at over $17 million in 1889 dollars, roughly $500 million today when adjusted for inflation. Yet amidst this horror, acts of heroism shone through. Local volunteer teams, arriving donors, and the fledgling American Red Cross, led by Clara Barton, descended on Johnstown to aid survivors. They dug with their bare hands, hauling bodies from rubble and searching for the living beneath splintered timbers. They fed and sheltered thousands who had lost everything. Barton herself personally supervised relief efforts for over 2 weeks, marshaling medical staff, distributing supplies, and comforting orphans and widows. But justice for the victims proved elusive. The South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club's wealthy members, among them industrial titans like Andrew Carnegie and Henry Clay Frick, were sued in hundreds of lawsuits seeking accountability for their negligence. Yet under Pennsylvania law at the time, the courts ruled that the dam's failure was an act of God, and the club was absolved of any liability. Survivors and families of the deceased received no compensation. This injustice fueled public outcry and spurred changes in American tort law, eventually making it easier to hold negligent parties accountable when engineering failures cause loss of life. Today, the site of the South Fork Dam is part of the Johnstown Flood National Memorial, maintained by the National Park Service. Plaques and interpretive panels mark the exact spot where the dam once stood, and the remnants of the reservoir remains a sober reminder. In Johnstown itself, levees and flood walls were built to protect the town from future disasters. The flood's anniversary is solemnly observed every May 31st, with wreath-laying ceremonies, historical reenactments, and community gatherings to honor those who perished. 136 years later, the Great Flood of 1889 endures as a cautionary tale of human hubris, engineering oversight, and the unstoppable force of nature. Thank you all for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, and let me know what other topics you'd like me to cover. This has been Deadliest Disasters.